I'd love to go into the round table. And I know Liz specifically was so excited about you, wanted to talk to you. So I'd like for her to kind of start us off today.
Sure. Here I am.
Hey.
And you can ask me anything, by the way. You don't have to worry about any, nothing's off the table.
Well, I just wanted to say that I threaded you on Threads, and I said that I was so happy to see you. So I'm happy to have this call with you. So I was happy to have that. But I just wanted to say that your whole life trajectory has been such an inspiration for me. After my mom passed away, I was like homeless, couch surfing, and like to read about someone in a book or to just hear your talks and have that experience meant so much. Because before that, I would walk into rooms and be like, I don't want people to know that I was sleeping on someone's couch yesterday. And so like your content has helped me mature and really fill the shoes that I always could. So I wanted to thank you for that. And so just a little bit about me. My mom, as you can see, is my biggest hero, and she passed away in 2013. Up until then, my biggest plan was I want to go to college, make a lot of money, and give her the world. And when she passed away, I remember thinking that she passed away suddenly from a brain aneurysm. And I remember thinking I had two options, which was to be miserable because I couldn't give my mom the world, or I could go on this journey to help other people kind of get there before it was too late, which led me to working at the Smithsonian, the African American Museum. And one of my mentors there gave me a book. She was like, I know you love history and research, but I really think you have a unique talent with data and marketing. So she gave me a book, and that kind of sent me on a spiral. And I love her to this day. Her name is Lene. Still keep in touch with her. And so I moved back to New York, started doing marketing for a series of Catholic schools. I did that successfully by building partnerships, got Google to pay for a maker lab, like a $2 million maker lab. And then once that was kind of over, a lot of my mentors were like, Liz, we think it's time for you to move to the next phase. So I got hired as the youngest executive director to the National Supermarket Association. And there, what I did was leverage technology so that we could gather data and work with companies like PepsiCo and Coca-Cola to use that data to make products based on the clientele that we had. And so it was great. And then the pandemic came, and it really forced me to relive being food insecure, relive like all the situations that we were. And I remember thinking, I can do something about this. So I shifted all my attention from the supermarkets to taking excess food and feeding people. And then I was like, there's a real thing here. So I started my own company, raised $2.6 million in 6 months. And we created an app kind of like Uber Eats, but for people who are food insecure. And so they could choose the food they wanted. They could choose the restaurant, and they could choose to either pick it up or eat it there. And then on the back end, really the beauty of the app is that we collected all this data to be able to fight policy in New York so that people who had food stamps could use them at restaurants. And so with our data, they were able to implement this kind of policy. And then we worked with hospitals so that we could tackle social determinants of health. Through this whole process with Gary, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that you can have the craziest dreams, but if you're not aligned with your co-founders, they can really destroy everything. And so really what happened was that I was so focused on building that I didn't realize that my two co-founders were not as invested in my community, and they just wanted to sell our data to make a bunch of money. And so I sold my shares a year ago. And it's been a year now, and it's been a hard year because it's like your baby, you give birth to this like startup, and you do everything, you hustle, and then you kind of step back and you're like, what's there? But that time has given me the opportunity to intern at places like Vayner, which I'm interning now, and it's really cool to see Gary not just behind a computer screen, but like in a consulting way. But what kind of was reawakening me is that the original idea that I had at my startup at Feed Forward, it's still there, because what the other founders wanted to do, they did. But the integrity of the data and what I wanted to do still exists. And it just made me realize that I don't need to start a company to do it. I think that this product is going to change into like a licensing. Oh, can you hear me now? Hello? You can hear me? Okay, cool. But she left. You guys can still hear me though, right?
I can.
Yeah,
hear
I think
you
it was
okay.
her. I think it was her computer. She looked like she froze right as she started saying something.
Mhm.
There you go.
Hey, it just froze for a minute. You were saying that at Food Forward, made you realize dot dot dot.
Yeah, so it made me realize that we tried to build this whole, and by the way, I should mention that the whole company was run based on my connection. So we used blockchain, we put it on food so that we could source food from A to Z. And we
Mhm.
used my supermarket connections to leverage these like Wegmans and all this stuff. And
Mhm.
so I was a 10% owner and they were like 90% owners. And every time we were going to talk about equity, they would change the subject. So I learned a lot of lessons at this company. And the most important lesson I learned was that what I want to do doesn't need to be a full blown like company right now. It's a product that can be licensed. And I'm enjoying the journey that I'm on now at Vayner, consulting on the side, because it just better improves the technology I'm trying to build. My question to you is twofold. The first is I would love to have some advice on how to find female mentors in tech, because I find it to be difficult. Like I already talked to John Henry and he's my boy. I love him, but like I would love to be connected with a female, because I think that a lot of the issues that I face are like walking in the room and being asked if I'm the executive assistant, and I'm like, bro, I'm not the executive assistant, but like okay. And then the second thing is I am not raising money right now, but I know that as I continue to hone in on this technology and all, like I have over 20,000 data points, what's the best way to start approaching companies? Last time I was lucky enough to have a back pocket connection. We got funded by one of the creators of Slack, but I feel like he has a very different vision of how he wants to invest and who he wants to invest in. And it tends to be like white males. And that's fine, but I just don't think I'm gonna want to approach him again, because working with him felt like instead of being an investor that gave us money and resources, it was kind of like an investor that gave us money and disappeared. And I want to work with an investor that's going to be like, hey, Liz, because I have friends who have CPG companies and I see the way that their investors really sit with them and help them grow. So I'd love any insight on like finding the right investor and like that path. But thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you for the context. Okay. So, on the investment side, do you have a non-compete with the previous company? You don't have,
Nope.
you didn't sign a non-compete at all? And so the previous company, I'm sorry?
I said I got a really good lawyer, and she kind of fought all the fights for us. So I got no non-compete, no non-disclosure. I have full access to all the data and all of that kind of stuff.
So it still exists and it's still active for Food Forward?
So it still exists, but because I'm not there anymore, it's kind of like an LLC in name. And so the old co-founder basically built like a holding company with Feed Forward and had a nonprofit under it and is doing other things, but people don't really refer to it anymore. So if I were to start something new, it would be fine, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you contacted Gooder, Jasmine Crow?
No, but I will write that down. Give me
So
1 second.
Jasmine is a portfolio founder at Backstage. She has Gooder, which all you have to do is GOODR, and all you have to do is look it up. You'll find your person. You all are a match, you know. And what she started out doing was, she had a different job, and she would do like the same way you thought about people being able to select from restaurants, which I'm kind of curious about because it's hot food, but being able to choose from restaurants. She would feed the homeless, but she would give them tables with tablecloth and a menu. And so she would make several items and they could choose what they wanted at these dinners. And she just did that for herself. And she turned that into a company that goes to airports, goes to sports games, etc., picks up the food that is not being used, like the new food that's being thrown away, and then the technology helps you transfer it to where it needs to go, saving people millions of dollars a year and also giving people food every day. And the reason I mean, I think you should know her just in general. It's always good to know who's in your, the landscape. But I think that if you research her enough and you like what she has a TEDx talk, things like that. I think you do have enough of a differentiated feature, if you will, for her, that it could be something interesting for her. And so instead of going to start a whole new company, it could be interesting. Again, you want to do a lot of research. You don't want to go to her because you don't know, but you have your lawyer. You might want to get in touch with her. I'm happy to help you do that. And you might say, hey, this is something that you can add to what you're already doing, because they make millions of dollars a year. They've raised millions of dollars. And I think that the two would be a really interesting, powerful thing. And she might have already looked at this and, said it's not something she wants to do, but you never know. So that's just one thing I think of before I even think about like trying to find investors. The other thing is, if you can find a way, like with your connections to the grocery and thing like that, like grocery people, if you can find a way to self-fund, like just have customers and just do this and kind of go back in it, you're going to take away so much of the heartache. You don't have to have necessarily a co-founder anymore, or you can over time choose a co-founder with less restraints and urgency, because you're not trying to grow at these astronomical rates that a VC would need you to grow. And so you can just kind of turn this back, this lifestyle brand, as you said, kind of back into what you want it to be and let it organically grow. That's what I would do in this part of, if I were you at this part of your life and I had gone through what you went through, I would just say, can I pick up the phone and call 2 or 3 grocers in my network and have some sort of service for them or some sort of data for them that is, you don't want to be mining data and just selling it, but I'm sure you have a compliant way to do that. And can I just have customers and just kind of build from there, and then bring in another technical person, bring in another operations person, one at a time. I would do that. And then, yeah, of course, there's the funding route. I'm just not, I don't go there first. I don't go there first. But to learn more about that, actually you can go to arlansacademy.com, and I have a 16-hour course that's free called How to Raise Capital from Scratch. So plenty of information there about it. Yeah, no problem at all. Let me ask you, this is a separate question. Lana at the museum, your mentor?
Oh, Lene, yeah.
Oh, did it freeze again?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me? Jacqueline, I'm like, is it the internet at the offices, or is it?
I think it's her. I think it's she's freezing because the 4 of us are like fine.
Okay, cool.
Could also be Vayner shoddy Wi-Fi. No, I think it's
By the way, so much value in like that little segment. Like, I'm freaking out. It's awesome.
I love that.
It's funny because I think it may be that I'm not using Chrome. Okay, I'm on Chrome now. Hopefully I won't go away yet. Lana from Washington.
Smithsonian, yeah.
Is she still there? Still at the museum?
She left recently. She's at White and Kennedy now.
Do you have anybody at the museum that you're close with, that you can connect with?
Yeah, I connect every July with the president of Smithsonian Associates. We're best friends.
Okay, because I have something I've been wanting to do, and it might be interesting if we can work it together. So I bought Janet Jackson's prize truck 2 years ago at auction.
Wow.
She's like one of my heroes, and she had this truck, and it was a whole moment. It's on video. It's this whole thing, and it's a truck that means a lot to her. And it came with the phone call, and I've met her again since and talked about it. So this whole thing, and it's like in press and stuff. And I would like to have it at this very particular the museum. That's where I want it. Mm-hmm. And but it's a process to get in. It'd be wonderful to talk to somebody about doing that. And I would transfer it over there.
I got you. I'm going to connect you with someone. Let me just hit her up first and then let you know.
Perfect. Yeah. And you can look up, I'll say, or you can look it up just like Arlan Janet truck, and you'll see the details. It's very cool. Okay. Awesome. And then your question about mentors. I mean, First of all, is the Issa Rae response, which is make sure you're not just looking for people who are like miles away from you, ahead of you for mentorship. Look a little bit at peer mentorship. But this, and that's kind of lower hanging fruit, easier to find. Also, like you were at VCon. Are you at Black Women Talk Tech? That was in Brooklyn a few weeks ago, like the day before VCon, I spoke there essentially. Are you at these different places where you're in the room already, you know, and those are really great places. So you can see people who are speaking, or people who are doing workshops, or people who ask a question and they say, I'm doing this, this, and this, and you hear what they were doing. You're like, oh, that's the person I need to be talking to. That's a really good way of doing that. You can also join, like I have like an inner circle, and a lot of people do. Like Rachel Rogers has one, which is really great. Rachel Rogers wrote We Should All Be Millionaires. She's amazing. She has her own kind of inner circle program, or some sort of program that's for entrepreneurs. Lamar Tyler has a great one for entrepreneurs, and this is people of color. So Rachel's is mostly women. In fact, I don't know if I've seen any men at her events, now that I'm thinking about it. So you got a great intersection there if you're looking for it. And then I have one too, and you can reach out to me if you're interested in that. It's the only way I'm able to do coaching because of my schedule. So it's an inner circle.
I will definitely reach out.
Yeah, those are a few ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. So, hey, I'm John. I told you I'm in Tampa, Florida. We have a nonprofit that we run down here that is a kind of a holding company for kind of social enterprises. So like right now I'm in we have a bicycle shop that does like refurbished bikes, and at the heart of this is all the service and sales revenue goes into like an earn a bike program, so people that cannot afford to meet their transportation needs can get a bike through community service hours. We do services on sliding scale. A couple other things in that ecosystem. We have a mobile kind of grocery that is called the Free Market, and it is, as it sounds, free. We just get food that might go wasted, get it to people that might go without. And it is kind of an onboarding it's an excuse to build relationships, but we're doing like 27 distributions a month right now. Most of those are repeated either monthly or weekly, kind of around town, just in food insecure communities here, so that we're able to stay in touch, kind of hear what's going on, figure out who needs transportation. We are dipping our toes into some housing stuff. It's a real need here in Florida. I mean, everyone's moving here, so property values are going way, way up. And a lot of people are, let's say, very precariously housed, and we're trying to figure that out. We have one house with a couple guys that we rent right now, nothing really special about it. It actually just loses money, and we got a couple guys housed, and that feels great, but like we're looking to kind of figure that out. A couple other little projects we have going on. There's like a thing called Well Fed that is like education around kind of food systems, mostly working with youth. They do some adult cooking classes as well, but just think like the life cycle of a plant. So everything from gardens and seed to like food prep, production to composting, kind of helping make food make sense and build our relationship around food. And I'm not exactly sure what to ask you, to be honest. Just like kind of where because I think because our space, I think my question, and I don't know how to articulate it, is we're at this weird overlap, right? So this is all nonprofit, but it is like we're making 60% of our revenue probably through earned income, like selling bikes and things like that. And some of the services, some of the cooking classes are for hire, whether they're nonprofits, this, that, and the other. But like all along, we're really driven by these needs in the community, and have not like been in a place where we're like we just spread our peanut butter over way too much toast, like let's say constantly, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm not exactly like the best at like fundraising, philanthropic fundraising, but all of this was started just kind of like, you know, auntie gives this much a month and grandma gives this much a month, and I just like here's how much we have to start. And we had started kind of building this thing up. As we've kind of got more into running businesses and social enterprise, a couple things have happened. We've realized like it's this weird gray space between for-profit, nonprofit, which is very intentional for us to have like dual revenue streams and kind of like hybrid this thing rather than like being a business that's a good neighbor, but also kind of holding that nonprofit status. But what I've realized is some of the philanthropic dollars personally have gotten harder and harder for us to get because it's like, oh, you're running like a bike shop where you were handing out Cuban sandwiches to hungry people. You know, it's like if you did just that, it was way easier to fundraise for. So there's that. But then also like when you get into kind of investment dollar, there's no real return on investment is for the community here. So we're looking more like this hybrid kind of impact investment stuff. And I'm figuring out as I go, but feels like we're constantly beating our, like it's making more and more sense to me what we're doing. But I feel like we've been beating our head against the wall a little bit with like actual like both revenue generation, both on the earned income. Like we have these like weird bootstrap businesses that are more focused on like giving away earn-a-bikes than like, let's say, creating a ton of revenue. Hopefully there's enough of a question of like this like middle space here of like operationally figuring out this path. Even as you mentioned, this woman before at Gooder, I started just looking at that and I'm like, oh, how did that immediately? I'm like, how does that turn into like a company? Right?
Millions of dollars in revenue.
It's gotta work because they're like, it's familiar. But go on. I know you got enough to kind of work with there.
Yeah, millions of dollars in revenue, and most people told her, Jasmine, you should just be a nonprofit, and she just didn't want to be a nonprofit. Some people want to be, she did not want to be. So she found the model where she's like, she found out that the government and different local governments give you either a write-off or they pay you to take food, and there just was no infrastructure to get the food from place to place. So she developed the technology that the drivers and the trucking people could use to get the food from place to place, and that she became that person that got the food moved around. So it was like looking at it from a different lens and deciding. So right now, the first thing I would ask you is what you're doing working, and is it enjoyable? Like if you didn't change anything, would that be okay?
Yeah, kind of. So I love what we do. Super, like it's not even like feels like, I'll say enjoyable beyond even, it's an obsession, right? Like I want to see my city function right, and serve the most vulnerable of our neighbors. So building an economy around that. Is it working? Things are going great, as in like the shop breaks even or whatever, but it also isn't working in the sense that we're not able to, let's say, pay enough or hire the staff we need. So like we're always like, you know, so it's like, yeah, it works at like this like diet limp along version, but to actually like kind of do what we need to do is like we need to be able to like be competitive in the marketplace with, let's say, hiring mechanics or build out our team, or you know, all, and that's true with each of these. We've got a lot of enterprises that are kind of like minimally functional. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's good to know. So it's you're already ahead of the game because it is enjoyable and you're obsessed with it. So it's not like it's this big burden on you and you're like, I got to figure it out and I got to scale. Those two things really don't work out because you're putting a boulder on your back and walking up a mountain. Yeah. But right now you're just like, I just want a jetpack. Like, let's go, let's do more.
Correct. Yeah, I see gas for the tank. That's it.
Yeah, which is great. So what you have are several very interesting models going on, right? So what that says to me is, I know that there are entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs and philanthropists who would, if they only knew about it, would want to participate in some way. So you got to figure out what is something that could benefit them. Is it having a yearly event where they get an award or they're invited to see what you bring in, right? What is there something that you can give them that they get something out of it, but they want to participate? Is it like we choose 20 local businesses every year who each pay 20,000, but I'm just making up numbers, pay a certain amount of money to be in our kind of our circle of influence, right? To be lauded here and your logo goes up and you attend this event and you do this thing. What is that going to take? So you got to figure out how much money you need to do what the thing that you want to do on a yearly basis. And once you understand that, then I think that you can attract philanthropy. Well, who I'm seeing are the people who have companies of their own, so they're entrepreneurs. They very much so respect what you're doing, and they don't need a heavy lift because they're doing their whole thing. But they're like, you're doing it, so I'm just going to give you what you need to do what you do. But I also want you to promote my company, or I want you to kind of, I have my name on some brick or something, some room, and you have a wall at the bike shop that has like stone. Somebody has engraved people's names, and they get to buy the stone. Like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. The brick, right? There's all kinds of stuff you can do. I remember when someone was building something in where I was born in Mississippi. They were building a big building, and they were just simply naming the seats. They were just naming the seats in the building, and it had like the little engravement, and you could buy it for a few $1,000s so that forever somebody's sitting for them. So you can do things like that. I think another example is my friend Holly, who's invested in Backstage and who's invested in other things with me. She has a little store in Portland where she lives. It's a clothing store. It's a really nice upscale clothing store, and every penny of the profits goes to nonprofit. Like, is nonprofit. And so with her, and what made me think with you is, like, I have often suggested to her that she just build that out. Either she take that to other cities and replicate it, or she does a franchise. You don't really hear too much about like nonprofit franchises, but you have a model that's replicable. And so somebody is somebody who wants to give back, but they don't know exactly the model. They don't know what to do. And you can say, hey, you can have a bike shop, you can have this housing, you can have, these different things, and you could charge them for the ability to use the name of it and the model, and for you to teach them how to do it. So these are just different ideas. They're not like we should do them all, but they're like, you can sit down with you and whoever your partners are. You can sit down and have like a staycation or a retreat at your place for 2 or 3 days and just whiteboard 100 ideas, and you're going to pull 2 or 3 that are going to make money for you. And none of them have to, like I said to Liz, none of them have to include these major investors coming in and fixing things, because that's a whole new set of help that I don't feel like everybody wants or needs or even knows is about to happen. But instead, if you have some people who are just like, man, you've been doing this, let me know about it. Do you have like video footage of what you all do? Do you have like a little documentary and stuff? Get that out to more people. Like, get it documented, get these little clips. I mean, you yourself are a personality, right? So just walk them through the bike shop and say, this is what we're doing today, and this is my man, da 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 da, and this is what we're working on. You want to come down here? That kind of stuff really translates to people spending money on.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You got a gold mine, essentially. You got a gold mine, and all it takes is mining it. You know, gold mined and mine it. Yeah.
No, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's probably a bit of my own personality that's a bit of an issue with it, where I'm very interested in what we're building, and I'm good with the storytelling. Like, I'm happy to storytell, but I think some of the just zero in and focus on raising has always been problematic, because there's so many plates spinning operationally. That's what I need to be spending my time doing as like CEO of the thing, and yet I'm also just literally in the shop, right?
Yeah, and find another like-minded person and say, hey, for 6 months we're not going to make much together, but we'll be together in this. Can you take this part of it, and I'll take this part of it. Like, I'm a big fan of the power of 2. And again, I don't know what your setup is, but I'm a big fan of the power of 2. And everybody talks about this. All the gurus are basically learning from the same 3 people. So we all talk about this fact that you have someone who can build and someone who can sell. Simple as build and sell. Operator and salesperson. If you're one person who does both, you're unstoppable. That's a Gary, right? That's a me.
Yep.
But it's also like, I can do both, but I choose not to. I always have one person who is like operating. So I'm selling. And because I know I can do both if I need to step in. So if you know, if you know, you have the vision and you can articulate it to a person, but you know that they have some incentive and they're good at what they do and they can go sell, great. Or if you can say, look, I've been operating this for years. I know exactly the playbook. Here's the playbook. Let me go and sell because I can tell it the story better than you can. Then do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to happen.
Cool. Yeah, you can do
Sure.
it. Think about why you
Thank
want
you.
it to happen. Think about what you want the outcome to be. Do you want to wait another 3 to 5 years for the outcome that you want? Or do you want a year from now to be saying, look what we did in a year?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Cool.
definitely that. I mean, I got staff. I want to make sure they have housing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Got the power to do it.
Thank you. Ashley, last but certainly not least, do you want to tell your story?
Yes, but just to say that I got so much value from, you know, what you shared with Liz and John already. So
Wonderful.
I'll just give you a little bit of the story, and then one of the things that I'm struggling with the most, maybe. So I'm from Trinidad, like I said. I'm a founder. 10 or 11 years ago, I read a book by Gary, and it was the Thank You Economy. And I was still in school at the time, and it made so much sense to me, that way of showing up online practically, because of how noisy social media is, but just as a good person and to be kind and compassionate, it made a lot of sense to me. So I work in social media marketing. I have worked in social media marketing since then. I grew up in poverty, and I've experienced all the things that comes with that. So food insecurity, childhood abuse, parents with addiction. I was raped and almost killed. And so I know that the world isn't fair, and that, like, you know, crying about it isn't gonna make much of a difference. But my own experiences, kind of my entrepreneurial mindset, even when I was looking for jobs or working in areas, and seeing how my family kind of pulled us out of poverty, and now working as a consultant supporting other entrepreneurs, really, really taught me that entrepreneurship can help to create greater economic and social equality. And in the past year, I've been working almost exclusively with nonprofits in the Caribbean who, in different areas, so girls' education, climate resilience of coastal communities, survivors of gender-based violence, Venezuelan refugees, agripreneurs, all of the different areas. But they kind of are also seeing that people want the opportunity to build businesses that will help them to take care of their families and communities. So from working with these different nonprofits, it's almost 200 entrepreneurs at this point. I've realized that there are a lot of similarities in terms of the early stage entrepreneurial support that they require. And so I'm trying to build an edtech platform that will provide them with capacity building resources, and also some sort of microfinancing, because of course you want to grow, but you need, you need money to grow, you need money to do things. So to be able to do that. And as I'm shifting from like consultant, marketer to founder, I know that this is a part of the process, but like hearing no so much is just like, I know intellectually that, you just need one yes, or
Yes.
like maybe a maybe, but like it's still hard. It's still frustrating. And I just kind of was wondering if you had any advice or any tips to keep going when
Yeah. So
challenging.
I do, because I experience no's all the time, and I talk about how it's a math game. That if you're hearing no's, it means that you're in motion. If you're not hearing no's, it means, what are you doing? Are you taking enough risk? If it's all yeses, it's no risk, and if it's nothing, no feedback, then you're not moving. You're not moving enough. So the no's are going to happen. I still get them. I got them this morning. No matter what, I've invested in 200 companies. I'm still going to get people to say no, because that's people's preferences. And so one of the things is the mindset of that's everybody else's business. Like their opinion and their preference is their business. And it doesn't reflect on me. It doesn't reflect on what happens to me, because I'm going to make it whether or not they want to be part of it, right? The second thing is to understand what are you asking them? What are you getting said no about?
Yeah. So at this stage, I have a deck we went through the day one fellowship, and I built out a deck, and I am just kind of reaching out to people, the nonprofit founders and the government agencies, people who I know do grant funding for this kind of work. But it's hard, and people are interested. The nonprofit founders in particular see the value in it, because that is why they hired me or came to me in the first place. But it's an expensive project, so
maybe understand it a little bit better. So you're building this, and you're sending the deck to people who can do grants.
yes,
and things of that
basically,
nature?
yes.
And
I
then,
am.
go
Yes.
ahead.
No.
Are some of those people also who would be your clients? Are they bigger? So you're sending it to the same people who would be using it?
That is kind of what I maybe need help refining, because the people, the government agencies and the nonprofits that will pay for it are not necessarily the users. So the users would be the communities that they support. So for example, we have an organization called Conflict Women, and they financially empower survivors of gender-based violence by teaching them entrepreneurial skills, because one of the reasons that women stay in abusive relationships is because they're financially dependent on their abuser. So if we could give them a little bit of skills to build, how to build a brand on social media, create content, those kinds of things, and to be able to scale that capacity building aspect of it is really, because I found that I was having the same conversations, which is why the idea for the
Understood. So you're sending the deck, and again, I'm having a hard time understanding. Are you sending it to the big organizations that do grants, and is that who you're sending it to today? Or are you sending it to somebody else?
Yeah, yes, I am at that stage of sending it to them. I have gotten feedback, so I sent it to the nonprofits and things like that, just to get their feedback first.
You send it to when you say nonprofits, I'm hearing two different nonprofits. So the nonprofits that you're getting feedback from are the people who would be like taking the courses online.
Yes.
And then the people that you're sending the deck to, so that there's like product market fit, people want what you're going to be doing.
Right.
I think that's understandable. But you are sending the deck to people who have, and I'm saying to people who can trickle down the money, who have the grants. Correct?
Yes.
And what feedback are you getting when they say no?
They're interested. There is interest in it, but I'm not sure if I'm just maybe too early, or if I need like an MVP, or I need a prototype or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like you need an offer. Do you have an offer to them? Is it like, what are you saying to them in the deck? Give me X number of money and I'll do Y, or what is it saying?
Yeah, the deck is basically like explaining the platform, which is a mobile first ed tech platform.
And what are you hoping somebody says yes to? Is there a dollar amount that you hope they?
Yes, there is a dollar amount. Yes. So yeah.
What's the dollar amount?
About $200,000 US. So.
And what is the total you're raising for it? The 200?
Yes.
And then what are you saying to the individual organizations that you're asking?
It depends. So sometimes I'm just answering a call for a grant. If they have a grant, and I'm just, so right now it's one for 75,000, and then I would match, and that would be like a pilot program. So they're not interested in funding the whole thing. They So I helped a woman who was an amputee build a project where some of the limbs can have different colors to match skin tone. And she wanted to have this company, like right away. She came to Backstage wanting to do this. And I said, I actually don't have a company yet. You have an idea, a really awesome idea. So I'm going to just back you personally and just do the R&D, the research and development on it, right? And then we did that for about a year, and she tested it, and we got her somebody who could 3D print it, and she did it multiple times. That she was amazing. And then because she had that time to do that, she was then able to withstand the long cycle of going into grant requests. And now she's like up for like a $300,000 grant, and it's this whole thing, but it takes like months and months to apply and to enough of them to get in the running for some of them. So if you're looking for 200,000, first of all, not in this conversation, but just on your own, make sure you understand why you're looking for that particular number. Sometimes people can put pen to paper and come back and save themselves 50% because they're like, I thought I needed that, but I actually don't need that at the MVP. I'm good if we don't have that, right? So make sure that number is very precise. And then
And then make sure when you're talking to people that it's not a grant, that's not already preconceived grant, that you have a very specific ask. Like it costs $10,000 to do this. Another thing you might want to do is have language, if you don't already, around something being the founding. Like this is you're a founding partner of this. You're a founding sponsor of this.
Okay.
People really like to be that because it's forever, you
Right.
know, seemingly. And so you can say I'm partnering with 5 organizations to each put in $40,000, and this is what they get out of it, and this is how far it takes us, right? So there's one way to do that. Another thing is to give yourself more time. It's like you have all the ownership of it right now. You have all the decision making. It's only kind of yours to lose, right? And I know that it's about damn time. That's why my book is called that. Everything is happening so fast. We need to get people some help. But because you have this power right now, you can say, actually, what I want to do is spend the next year in development. I'm going to have the website built out, whether I get the 200K or not. I'm going to have it built out over time, have people start to use it so they can, get the content up there so people can actually start getting some success through it. And if you can show success, then you really got people. People are like, oh, you have numbers. You can say in our pilot program, we did XYZ instead of it just being something that if you give me the money, I'll build it. And then you also are a consultant. So you are you know how to make money, you know how to make an offer to people. And you can, I wrote down in my notes, be your own first yes. If you're hearing no's, be your own first yes. So if you know that you have a $2,000 product that people buy, and you want to say, I'm going to spend this amount of time and I'm going to get 10 of those clients, and that's going to be the first $20,000 or the first 10,000, I'll take 10 and I'll put 10 towards it. And that's going to get me the MVP, and that's going to get me the person who's going to help me for 16 hours a week from HireRunner.co, which is my company. Like that's what's going to do it. You're putting that control back in your own hands. Because if you just keep going out for the next year and you just keep asking the same question and getting the same answer from people, it's going to be so demoralizing that you won't want to continue. You won't be able to sustain it, most likely. But if you can give yourself an early win, and then you can do that by reframing what success looks like.
Yeah.
It's not the whole 200.
And that's great. It's really great advice, and I can definitely do that for myself because I have built, I could put together a small website and get some people.
Perfect. If you can put together a small website, you need to put together a small website.
Yeah.
Get people on that sucker. I have 25,000 students on arlansacademy.com, and I can take it if I wanted to. I could take it to people, but I built it from April 2020, right after the pandemic hit. I just built it one course at a time. And now this robust thing that corporations, that's another thing I was going to say, is corporations might be a play too, not just the nonprofit entities, but corporations who can, like almost every corporation, or maybe everyone, has a part of their capital that goes to philanthropic efforts. Some of them are forced to, and some of them want to, right? And sometimes you just don't know what they're sitting on, what kind of amount they're sitting on. They want to do something, but they don't have the deal flow. They don't know where to put the money. A lot of times they'll plan that ahead. So that's the 2024 thing. But you can have those conversations too. 20K gets your logo all over the thing. It's presented by, it's all of this. And again, I mentioned to John, events. People really like to be in the room and celebrate themselves.
Okay.
Virtual or in
great. Yeah, you just made sometimes it just feels so overwhelming. I just think, especially coming from poverty, there's a whole mindset that you have to overcome in addition to all of the external hurdles. Like every day is like, who do you think you ought to do this? Like, but yeah, you just broke that down.
Yeah, you are you. My friend, I was having one of those moments back in 2017. And it was in Houston, Texas, in a hotel room, and I was really nervous about something. And she said, "Do you know you are Arlan Mother Hamilton?" And so
Yeah.
now I say that to myself sometimes. I'm like, I'm Arlan effing him. Even if I don't feel like I am, whoever, whatever your name, that's who you are. Who are you to do
Mhm.
that? That's who I am.
Right. Yeah.
That's who I am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And you might not want to be so patriarchal with the mother effing, but you can do the effing if you like.
Okay. I will.
Cool.
I love that. Does anyone have any other questions before we wrap up?
I have a question. So,
Yeah.
I feel like I've realized that I'm a serial entrepreneur. Like I had my first business at like 14. I bought like a t-shirt printing press, and every summer after that I would make t-shirts. And then I've done so much. And right now I'm going through this thing where after selling Feed Forward, I started consulting, and now I'm getting offered like full-time roles at places. But I keep going back and forth on it because consulting allows me the opportunity to be a thinker. Like I know I'm really good at building things, like building an idea for a new tech software. And I feel like, but that it's like kind of investing in yourself, because sometimes, it could be like you create something that hits in 5 years, or sometimes it hits in 6 months. And so I would love to hear from you, like, as someone who knows that they're an entrepreneur, how do you find the right working environment? Like, do you do the full-time thing and hustle, or do you continue to consult and like build that out so you have like freedom and flexibility? Because I think I'm struggling with, yeah.
Either. There's no wrong answer to that. It depends on your circumstances, right? Sometimes that having that full-time gig is just the insurance you need, like literal, like health insurance. You got to have that in place. And yes, a couple hours a week or a day you can put towards the side hustle until something happens over there. Or you can have it where you're doing consulting if you know that that's pretty steady and it's not like the crazy lifestyle that you want, but it gives you that freedom to just work on the things and that autonomy to fail, which is really powerful. Then yeah, do that version. I think that I'm really a fan of like the creators and people who have their own agencies, because they have their own agency. If you know what I mean, like, right? Because I like that model for myself too when I think about different ways. And I think like would I rather be sitting in an office or at home working from home or something, and I'm being paid by the hour for my time, or would I rather kind of myself dictate what I'm getting paid for, my creativity, my talent, my skill, being my presence, all of that? And I much rather that than to say, like, no matter what I do, no matter what I come up with, no matter how much money I make this other person, they're going to pay me $40 an hour. Like, to me personally, that's not enough in life. And I did that for most of my life. That was my life, right? And now on the other side of that, I'm like, actually, no, I don't like that. I'd rather take on the struggle of not necessarily knowing what day payday is, but I don't have to think of myself in those terms. And then there's a hybrid. Like if you're working at Vayner and you're interning and like you're meeting people and you're learning stuff and you're getting paid to have that kind of proximity, that's a hack. Right? So there's different things you can do to hack. I mean, there's stuff sometimes you do for free as a hack. Like I volunteered when I was in 2013, when I was homeless and I was trying to get a touring gig because I used to work in music touring, and I couldn't get a touring gig to save my life. And there was this event happening in Phoenix. So I took a bus overnight. It was really terrible. Got to the place, didn't have a place to stay, but I volunteered in the morning. I said, can I just give out badges at the registration? And they said, sure. And I got to meet every single person who came in, and I left that 3 days. I found a place to stay. I left that 3 days. I got a ride from Fiona Apple's production manager, a ride back to LA. He was finishing with Fiona and going into Tony Braxton. So then I became Tony Braxton's production coordinator because I volunteered for that 3 days. Really discomfort. There was a lot of discomfort to it. There's a lot of embarrassment to it. But I was like, I'm going to hack it. I'm going to do it. It's all on me. Nobody's coming here to save us. I got to do it. So you kind of plot and plan like what you want to do so that you can have the life you want just really soon, sooner than later. That's what I say.
I love that. And I think that's just like, as Ashley was saying before, I think a lot of it, because that's what I want to do. But a lot of the fear comes from like when I talk to people, my family, they're like, you're not going to have a W-2. What's the matter with you? And it's like this fear. I think my last question, and it can be in 60 seconds or less, but I want to do what you do, because I grew up in a place where a lot of my friends were told to drop out of high school or forced to drop out because they were a nuisance. But I see how they're creating and how they're building. And I wish that I could, like, sometimes I'm like, I wish I could just connect you with all the funders that I got money from, but like they don't move that way, you know? And so like, what's the best way to bring money to your community? Especially when you see so much opportunity. And like you, I love like investing in things, because I think that if they make good money, I can make good money in the future too.
Yeah, I have to run it at the 12, but the best way to give money to your community is to make money and give it to them at your leisure. That's the best way. It's not to put together a fund. I'm out over here trying to buy my fund back, like, so that I can just do whatever. Like, I have such a high risk tolerance. If a founder comes to me and says, we're going bankrupt, I'm like, cool. Like, what did you learn? Are you okay? Like, that's all I care about. But if investors don't care about that, right? But if I'm an angel investor and I put 50,000 or 10,000 or $100 in a Reg CF crowdfunding, and something goes wrong, I get to decide how I react to it. I get to decide what happens next. So, you know, do all the things I said prior to that, and then put some of that money to the side, and that's your investment portfolio. And again, it doesn't have to be a ton of money. It can be, I have $1,000 extra a year. I go to Reg CFs on Republic, on WeFunder, Start Engine, and I invest in 5 companies a year, $200, and I learn from that, and I support them, and I listen to their updates, and I build that over time. You know, that's what it could look like. Or it could look like your friends, like, hey, I'm going to set you up with an LLC. It costs $250. I'm doing an LLC for you, because I do that for 4 companies a year. It's a big deal. Or I'm going to take you to a conference. I'm going to take you to a conference. The conference costs $300. I'm going to take you to the conference. That's an investment. Okay, got to run.
Thank you so much for your time.
So much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye, everyone.